The Cabildo Indígena American University recognized the importance of the cultural diversity, interculturality, pluriculturality, and multiculturalism. Main concepts. Multiculturalism refers to the coexistence and appreciation of the diverse cultural ethnicities, languages, traditions within the educational context. As stated in Banks 2004, multiculturalism is the ability to recognize, respect, and value cultural, ethnic, and linguistic diversity to promoting coexistence, dialogue between the different cultural groups, and cultural identities, the understanding their history, contribution of the indigenous students, and promotion the inclusion and equity.
Multiculturalism, the University Indigenous Council of the Mariana University refers to the coexistence of several cultures in the same space without necessarily implying a deep interaction between them. The challenge is not only the coexistence of cultures, but also to generate meaningful interactions that promote mutual respect and understanding, uniting ancestral knowledge with Western academic knowledge.
Interculturality and the students of Nariño specifically in the Cabildo Indigenous of the Marian University refers to the ability to interact, understand cultural, ethnic, value, and linguistic diversity within the university context according to the Watt 2012. Interculturality is a process of encounter dialogue between the different cultures in which seeks to build a respectful, equitable coexistence, recognizing diversity as a richness and enhancing the interaction between knowledge and cultural practices.
The Cabildo Indígena promotes interculturality by preserving indigenous traditions and fostering dialogue with the university community. It encourages mutual respect between cultures and supports inclusive education, allowing indigenous students to express their identity while teaching others about their heritage.
Pluriculturality refers to coexistence and appreciation of the multiple cultures, ethnicities, languages, and traditions in the educational context. According to Watch 2010, is the ability to recognize, respectful, value, and cultural, ethnic, and linguistic diversity to promoting coexistence and dialogue between the different cultural groups, recognizing the equal rights and opportunities for all, in which the multicultural curricula are incorporated. Teachers are training in the intercultural education and the spaces for the dialogue and reflection and creative.
About pluriculturality, the Cabildo Indígena asks for respect for ethnic and cultural diversity in the university. Students from communities with a history of fighting for their rights want a place in the academic world and recognition as nations with their own traditions, languages, and history. The Cabildo Indígena shows the desire for Colombia to recognize the many nations within the country.
Transculturality is the ability to transcend, overcome cultural, ethnic, and linguistic barriers to achieve and understand and deep dialogues between the different cultures, according to Watt 2010. It's a process, an encounter dialogue between the different cultures in which seeks to overcome cultural barriers, borders, and build a new way to understanding and living cultural diversity.
And the University Indigenous Council, the transculturality goes beyond simple coexistence and interaction, promoting the creation of hybrid identities and mutual transformation between cultures. These interactions enable both indigenous and non indigenous students to develop new insights through open dialogue and shared respect, integrating indigenous knowledge into the university.
The Cabildo Indígena of Mariana University is an organization currently made up of indigenous students belonging to different ethnic reservations, these being Inga, Pastos, Kemsa, Yacona, Kiyasenga, and Awa people, whose objective is to give continuity to the strengthening of their own identity from the teaching and the uses and customs that exist within these communities. As we can see, Mariana University is making progress in the intercultural process. However, it should consider the teaching and learning of ancestral languages. To achieve this, Mariana University must consider the following aspects. Bilingual intercultural education seeks to integrate indigenous languages and cultures into national education systems. This approach recognizes the cultural and linguistic diversity in Latin America and proposes an education that respects and values the cultural identities of indigenous. Bilingual intercultural education not only aims for instruction in two languages, the indigenous and the official, but also proposes an educational model that values and respects the worldviews, cultural traditions, and ancestral knowledge of indigenous communities. Bilingual intercultural education is seen as a tool to fight the historical marginalization of these groups and strengthen the cultural identity within the national education system. The decolonization of knowledge is a central concept in the intercultural bilingual education. It involves questioning the narratives and practices imposed by colonial education systems and promoting the recognition and validation of indigenous knowledge. This advocates considering indigenous worldviews and epistemologies as valid as Western knowledge, creating an educational space where multiple forms of knowledge can coexist and be valued equally. The importance of the active participation of indigenous communities in the design and management of intercultural bilingual education is not only about integrating indigenous language and culture into the curriculum, but also about involving communities in education decision making, ensuring that their needs, interests, and values are represented. This model seeks to be participatory and horizontal as opposed to vertical and paternalistic approaches. The recognition of linguistic rights is a fundamental aspect encompassing indigenous communities. These rights include the teaching and the use of the mother tongue in educational contexts. The preservation of indigenous language through education is considered a means to resist cultural homogenization and loss of traditional languages, which convey unique knowledge and perspectives of the world. Many indigenous communities lack adequate infrastructure, pedagogical materials in their native languages, and trained teachers in intercultural approaches. There is a shortage of teachers trained in bilingual education and intercultural approaches, which limits the quality of intercultural bilingual education. The true interculturality in education can only be achieved if indigenous communities actively participate in educational decision making, ensuring that their values, languages, and worldviews are represented in the curricula. Bilingual intercultural education not only preserves indigenous languages, but also reinforces cultural identities, providing students with an education that values their roots and empowers them as key actors in their communities. The great challenge that Mariana University faces in the 21st century is to promote education for citizenship. Citizenship education refers to the process of shaping informed, critical, and active citizens in their communities and societies. It emphasizes the importance of the students developing not only civic knowledge, but also skills and attitudes that promote democratic participation. Education for citizenship is essential for the development of more just and democratic societies, but its implementation also requires a commitment between theory and practice.